What's up, guys? It's McNulty here. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. And today's the 1st of June, and it is the beginning of a new month. And we also have the Soul Exchange portal, which has dropped in this morning. So we've got a whole list of new heroes to have a look at today. A list of heroes that has been a bit controversial. And I want to go through them in a little bit of detail to try and help anybody who's struggling to make up their mind as to whether or not this is a good portal to be exchanging souls in. I know that you work hard and you summon hard to be able to get hold of those other heroes to trade in this portal. So it's a big decision to make, and I don't think it should be taken lightly. So there are a few other videos that have been out on the Soul Exchange, but I want to give you guys my thoughts today, and also obviously help myself make up my mind as to whether I want to go ahead and do one for this exchange, for this Soul Exchange. So first of all, let's go ahead and we will select the heroes. I do have 20 heroes in here available, which should be available. Jasper, just because I've got a second copy, luckily enough. And we'll just pop these heroes in, so we should be able to highlight up all the columns. And once we've done that, we'll go ahead and have a look at the heroes that are on offer. All right, so we've got 20 heroes selected. So we'll start with the first row. So the first row of heroes for 10 souls required, we've got Marie-Therese. Now, this is an interesting hero. She is running at slow speed. She does deal damage to all enemies, and she gives all allies health regeneration over 4 turns, and defense increase for 4 turns. So she's doing quite a bit. And then the zombie blessing, where if the blessed hero dies within the next 4 turns, they get reborn as a zombie. That zombie has like absolutely no health and terrible attack stats. So it's just a way of sort of not a proper revive, but just keeping a hero alive for a little bit longer. There isn't anything extremely special about this hero, and she doesn't shine in any forms of the game, including the rush format. So if you do have 10 souls and you're looking to trade for somebody, I would just not take her. Just hold on to your 10 heroes. Now, the next hero that we've got here, and obviously it's worth mentioning that until now we've had season 1 heroes in the top row, and in the second row we've had like heroes of the month, and then the third row has been these insanely good heroes. But this is the first Soul Exchange where it's not been just season 1 heroes in the first row. And I think that's been done for a couple of reasons. I mean, we're not necessarily running out of them. This is Soul Exchange number 6, and I think there's 23. So yeah, maybe we've run out. But that could be the one reason. The other reason is, as I mentioned in the previous Soul Exchange, sometimes it's worth looking at those heroes if you want to make duplicate copies of somebody like Costume Oberkan and you're struggling to get one from other sources. It could be an easy win for 10 souls to grab one of those season 1 heroes and make a duplicate if you have the second costume. So let's move on to hero number 2, which is Musashi. He's an old hero, man, 2017. So he does get an increased mana generation, which is probably the best of the family bonuses. And he is also running at fast speed, which is a big tick in the right box. The attack stat, actually, for an older hero, nearly 800 attack is pretty decent. But as you can see, the defense and the health stats are extremely low compared to what we've been looking at. So he's got a good class, good family bonus, absolutely crappy stats, and he is running at fast speed, so that's a tick in the right box. Now, he does deal 332 damage to the target, and he deals minor damage, which is half of that, to nearby enemies, and he heals for 50% of dealt normal damage for 5 turns. So any tile damage after he hits is going to be healing him, which makes him quite survivable. But with that low defense stat, he's pretty easy to just take out. Sorry guys, even if he heals up a bit. So It's an interesting one, man. Um, Element Link is plus 15 attack and plus 15 defense for all holy allies, which he really does need. And I mean, that could be beneficial. So Masashi might not be a bad choice from this first row if you do only have 10 souls to trade. Unfortunately, though, if we compare it to previous soul exchanges where we had Grace, I think in the last one was at 10 heroes. She was a much, much better hero than him, and a much more recent one as well. Now, Kingston is the next hero. Kingston's a sniper. He is of the 2019 family, so he gets a bonus of 10% attack, which is good because obviously he's a sniper, so he can definitely benefit from that. Which means that 749 attack stat's going to benefit from an extra 10%, so it's going to be nearly 760-ish, or 756 or something like that. So that is pretty good to bear in mind. The element link is pretty good. It's the plus 4% mana generation. But in terms of his damage, he's dealing 445 damage to the target at fast speed. It's an okay hit, actually, at fast speed. If you do add, let's just have a look. If we did add second limit breaks, we could get him up to about 1,000. I mean, I'm just trying to look at this from a perspective of somebody who is, either free or extremely cheap to play. He could be a viable option. He's a relatively good sniper. The class is a good class as well. And his secondary effect, where he gives minus 31 attack and a further 4% decrease in attack every time they're hit or the enemy's hit during the next 4 turns, is also quite good. Just thinking of hitting somebody like Khufu, for example, you're reducing his attack by 31% for 4 turns, potentially even more than that. He could be a good sort of control hero as well as a sniper. So he's quite versatile. Actually, I do like this hero. I think he is a pretty good option still, even considering he is a few years old. He does have innate resistance against burn damage as well, which is good for the new family bonuses for like the Sun family, for example, where they inflict burn damage. So if you're going up against them, Kingston could be a viable option. So not as bad as first thought. Okay, so moving on, we've got Ares. Okay, Ares has got a costume now. The other heroes that we've looked at, except for Marie Therese, Musashi, and Kingston, I don't believe they do have costumes. If they do, I can't remember what they are. But Ares does have a costume, and in fact, I remember liking his costume quite a bit. So if you do already have the costume for Ares, this might be a viable option. He does have a good ether talent, the defense up ether talent. And in terms of special, he's going to be running at average speed. Caster and nearby get plus 54% attack for 4 turns. Caster and nearby plus 36 critical chance for 4 turns. And the caster and nearby regenerates 720 HP over 4 turns. So he's just boosting the attack and critical chance. It could be good. He could be paired up with some other red heroes, like, for example, I would put him with maybe Zagrog, who hits like a truck. I mean, if you give that guy plus 54 attack, he's running at average speed as well, so they're going to charge up at the same time. He's going to hit even harder. And this new hero of the month as well is a pretty good one that you could pair him with. There's a few other options in red where you could put together, like, I would more use him on attack than defense, to be fair, in today's meta, just because, I mean, he was a good tank back in the day, but we're talking way back in the day now. So he gets that increased mana generation bonus as well. So potentially you could speed him up quite a bit. Yeah, I can see some uses for Ares, and I can see a couple of arguments why he would be a good hero. I think if you've got a couple of other good average speed red hitters, then Ares could be a viable option for you to build a really solid attack team. If we do switch off the max power preview, you're going to see his attack stat is absolutely terrible. That doesn't really matter because he's not really doing any damage. He's not attacking anyone. He's not damaging as part of his special skill. But his defense and his HP are higher, which is, where you want it. It's where it counts. So yeah, Ares is a pretty all right option in terms of being, the only thing is, if you've got 10 souls, you've probably got other heroes that are potentially better than these ones. So unless you really need him, like I said, for a red attack team, I'd probably steer clear of Ares. And then we've got Missandra. Now, Missandra, apart from her costume, she's an absolutely terrible hero. In practice, I mean, it looks like she's supposed to deal 310 to a bunch of different enemies. Well, minor damage on the other hits up to 3 times. But she just doesn't. It's a 42% chance for additional hits. And if it doesn't trigger, you're stuck with 310 hit, which with a 723 attack stat is just nothing. If you do have her costume, though, she does benefit from the mindless attack, and that makes her a whole different hero altogether. So if you have her costume for 10 souls, I think that she'd probably be a viable option. If you don't have her costume and you've just got 10 souls, then I would steer well clear of Missandra. So from row 1, what we're saying so far, I would say Kingston is probably your best pick here in row 1. And then I would probably say Musashi after Kingston, and then Ares if you were going to pick one of them. But then, like I said, he would have to be specifically for a red attack team. Now moving on to row 2. So we've got Sartana. Sartana costume for 15 souls is absolutely ridiculous. She's not even worth 10 souls, unfortunately. Just look at her attack stat. It's 685, and she is a sniper. So don't be sort of lured into thinking she's a great hero by looking at that 532% damage to the target. Even though it is quite a high amount of damage with that low attack stat, it really doesn't make much of a difference. I mean, even with a second limit break, she's only just getting over 900 attack. And her base costume is probably better than the costume, or base version is probably better than the costume, because it does give poison damage as well, but it is over 6 turns and it's not a huge amount of poison damage. So we're just going to leave it at that. Sartana is not worth 15 souls. Now, Drake Fong, on the other hand, is a really good hero. I don't think that he's been given his due from some of the other videos that I've watched on these soul exchanges, or this soul exchange in particular, because he's actually still a really good hero. Now, he is of the 2018 family, so he does get an increase for defense. It is useful for Drake Fong because you want him to have a bit more survivability. And the way that his stats are, he is built to be quite balanced. So a little bit of an increase on the defense doesn't go amiss at all. And he's somebody that is a control hero as well as an attacker, because he gives the blind and he has a pretty decent hit 3. So his special is running at fast speed, which is of course what you want to see. 270 damage to the target in nearby. Okay, it's not a huge hit, but it is at fast speed. And if you do focus on the attack side of things, which is where I would go with this guy, just because he's got that defense from the family bonus anyway, you're going to be able to get that attack stat up pretty high. This talent path that they use in the max power preview is not the best one. It's not like the recommended one that I would go for with him. So you can definitely increase his attack above 1,000, and then the attack up ether power as well is going to boost that by 20% at the start of battle for 6 turns. Now, I know I'm mentioning the ether powers a lot, and alpha ethers are like the most sort of ridiculously expensive thing in the game at the moment. but that is just for the moment. I want to stress that eventually you're going to have limit breaks, second limit breaks on loads of your heroes. It will take time, but I do think that that could be, it's a potential to where this could be an extremely good hero, an extremely effective hero, if you do end up being able to have enough alpha ethers to use some on Drake as well. Yeah. So not only does he deal the damage, he deals the blind, which is minus 35% accuracy for 3 turns, and his element link gives plus 5% attack and plus 5% defense for 6 turns, and that can't be dispelled. So you're adding all of these things together, the attack up from the ether power, the right path on the talent grid where you're going the sword path to get the most attack up for him, and the element link plus the costume bonus. Well, if you have the costume, yeah, I think he is a viable pick. Put it that way. If you want to put him in as part of a holy attack team, he's going to go great. I wouldn't use him on defense, probably more on offense than defense. Now, Albie, Albie was at 10 souls, and he was switched out. I think he was switched out for Grace, wasn't he? But now they've featured him for 15 souls, and I've got no idea why. He would have been worth 10 souls because of his revive chance. He does have a better revive chance than somebody like Heimdall, which is someone that a lot of people use in Rush, if they don't have any other revivers available. And for Rush Wars, one of the most effective defense strategies still is to have Kalo on the left wing and then a reviver on the right. Your best options for the reviver would be obviously Albie costume or Mother North costume, or Mother North the regular version, or Heimdall costume. But a lot of people do use regular Heimdall, and he's not as good of an option as Albie is. So I would say I would pick him over Heimdall if I was given the option. He does have the health regeneration rather than the boosted health, but the bit that loads of people forget about is that he gives all allies a moderate amount of mana over 4 turns. And that can really sneak up on you, and your heroes are just popping and getting charged, and you're wondering what the hell just happened. But yeah, he's definitely not worth 15 souls. If his revival chance was at 50%, then he'd be worth 15 souls. If his mana speed was at average speed, then he'd be worth 15 souls. But as is, he isn't. If you are in desperate need of a reviver, though, he could potentially fit the bill for you. And his health is extremely low in today's meta, so you're going to struggle a little bit with Albie, unfortunately, because he's a great hero, but he's not worth 15 souls. So Elizabeth, right, so Elizabeth has recently received a costume which is not much better than the original version. It's almost exactly the same. She is a great hero as is. She's obviously got the Underwild family bonus. She's got the increased buff duration passive, which can be amazing if you've got heroes that give buffs, because the buffs last an extra turn. Interestingly, I was using the buff duration thing with Zekina and put him next to Ludwig, and he just basically gets an extra turn of that 6-turn mana boost, which is absolutely amazing. So that's a little tidbit that you could use Elizabeth with if you are going to use her on an attack team and just throw fiends at everybody. The stats, obviously, they're going to be a bit better. She's at 807 team power, which is the highest of any hero on this row by quite a huge margin. I mean, aside from Sartana costume, who's absolute trash, Drake 768, Albie 765, Lepus 763, and she's at 807. So yeah, the stats are much better for Elizabeth than any of the other heroes in this row of 15 souls. And just for that, I would say she's a viable choice. But her special is also really good. It's 175 damage to all enemies, which is not a huge amount, but with the stat being higher, it definitely makes a difference. And the Spider Fiend, damages with 43% attack and absorbs nearly 30% of the target's max health, which means it can be taken away with most heroes that do healing for like 30% or more. It won't be able to be taken away with somebody like Melina, for example, who does 25%, or Grazul, for example, who does like, is it 20% now, I think? So yeah, it's a really good special, but the Fiend is a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Squishy, a little bit easy to remove. But when summoned, that Fiend gives minus 24% mana generation, which is extremely important because she's all about slowing down the enemy. And as long as the owner has fiends, that mana slow can't be cleansed. So it is a really useful effect. So yeah, Elizabeth would be potentially a good choice. She is worth the 15 souls, I would say. And if you are lacking in red, I think that she will form a good part of an attack team. But remember that you would need to have a good red hitter as well, because she doesn't hit quite as hard. She's there to buy the rest of your team time to get their specials fired off. And then moving on to the final hero in the row, and he would be my pick from this row, is good old Master Lepus. Now, Master Lepus is an incredible hero. He is a bit dated, granted, because he's been around for a long, long time now. But if you look at that attack stat, it's 795, so nearly 800 on the attack. And yes, his defense is low, and yes, his HP is super low, but he's running at fast speed, and at fast speed, he's dealing 410 damage to the target and minor damage, which is 205 to the nearby enemies. And he does get a minus 20% defense for 3 turns, which is part of the Easter family sort of, I was going to say bonus, but it's not a bonus. It's a booby trap or a booby prize. And they do get that family bonus, but that really doesn't matter that much with Lepus. What he is an excellent sort of finisher, as it says, reckless finisher. He's an excellent follow-up hero. And in fact, I do have a copy of Lepus in my roster, which might be helpful to show some of you guys if you're considering him. And I still use this guy all the time. So he is limit broken, and he's got emblems all except the last one, just because I don't think I have enough at the minute. But 956 attack is pretty decent, and I've got his health up to 1433, and he can definitely handle his own. I use him on an attack team with Loki. I don't actually use Magni on that team, but it would be great to use him on that team. But he's on one of my other teams. And what's the guy's name? Costume Kirill. So Costume Kirill on that team is absolutely perfect for him, because he, in this costume, gives that minus 34% defense. So follow that up with a hit from Lepus, and it's game over. So yeah, what I'm saying is, and I shouldn't have done that, Lepus is a really, really good option from the second row. So let's get these heroes all together. And now we are going to go on to row number 3. So let us just select those heroes, and we'll get cracking with the third row of heroes. So for the second row, just to be clear, I would say Drake Fong is actually a really good choice. Elizabeth is probably a better choice. And then Master Lepus would definitely be my pick of the bunch. I think he's the best choice from the row of 15 souls. And I think he's probably, him and Elizabeth are probably the only two that are really, really worth 15 souls from that row. Now, moving on to row number 3. So this is where things start to get interesting. These are supposed to be the super premier heroes. These are the most premium heroes of this whole lot. So we expect that these heroes are going to be good because this is what we try and save up these 20 souls for. And running training camp 20 day and night for 3 months, you might just get maybe 5 or maybe 6 5-star heroes if you're lucky. So you're going to need to be doing some summoning to be able to be at this sort of level. So if you are here, you've probably got some of these heroes already, maybe 1 or 2 of them. But what you're looking for is a hero that's going to be able to boost your roster in an amazing way that's going to help you out 100%. So let's start off with Agrafina, this ugly looking diva. She's not that bad looking. So anyways, she does get the magic family bonus. Okay, so we're going to do these ones properly. So 50% chance to cast plus 5% mana generation stack on a random ally. It's pretty good, but it is a random ally. It's just one. Her passive, it's not my favorite from the Magic Family heroes. It's a 50% chance to deal 100% damage to all enemies. 100% damage is not really going to do very much, so it's not the greatest passive skill out of the family bonus for the Magic heroes, and she does only get the one where the new Magic Family heroes get 2. So not such a great start, unfortunately. Now, her stats, they are pretty good, pretty balanced. But she's got very similar stats to Elizabeth that we just looked at, where she's running at 756 attack, 788 defense, 1454 on the health. So she's a bit more defensively built, which should help with survivability. But, sorry guys, a defense stat below 788 at max level in this day and age, and I keep saying that, and so many people keep saying that, but unfortunately it's true. In this day and age with this game is a bit low. So she's not going to survive quite as well as you think. She does have the double mana charge. So on the first mana charge, she's kind of terrible. To be honest, minus 20% attack for 3 turns and minus 20% defense for 3 turns. Okay, she's giving attack down and defense down, and she's dealing a bit of poison damage. But she's doing 3 things to a very minimal amount with no damage dealt except the damage from her passive. What I would have loved for this hero is if it was something like, minus 40% defense down, and then leave the attack. Just fucking forget about the attack. And then forget about the poison damage as well. Or just have it be like 500 poison damage over 3 turns and forget about the other skills. She's doing too many different things without very much effect at charge 1. At charge 2, she becomes a beast. So all allies get plus 45% attack and further 20% increase every time they get hit during 6 turns. So if you take her up against a minion heavy team and you get her to charge 2 and she fires off, it's game over, because everyone on your attack team is just going to be doing ridiculous amounts of damage. I think it caps out at 160% on the attack, and that attack applies to everything. So it's just a boosted attack stat, ridiculous attack stat boost with no miss. And then all allies get this plus 54% defense and the further 5% increase every time they hit during 6 turns. So again, amazing. And all allies regenerate 1428 HP over 6 turns. So with this one, she's doing everything in the right order and she's doing everything extremely well, which is why I do think Agrafina is worth the 20 souls. But, and that's a big but, charge 1 is terrible, and a lot of people think and say that she makes a good tank. I'm not in that group of people, because when I see her as a tank, I just go ahead and bring a yellow team and tile dump into her, and she either dies or she fires off a charge 1. And if she fires off a charge 1, it just gives you enough time to be able to get everything back up and running and kill her before she sets off that second charge. But if she does manage to get to that second charge, yes, she might be a pretty good or viable tank. But I'd rather put Ludwig in because he's got a much better effect running at slow speed. And he can just make people fire multiple times plus the taunt, etc. And he was featured for 15 souls. So that's enough said about Agrafina before I go too far off topic. But I don't think that. Sorry, guys. I don't think she'll be my choice from the 20 soul tier. We've then got this hero, Topaz, which was one that I was considering quite heavily. And I think I still consider her because she is an excellent hero. The only downside for me personally is the emblems because I just finished Ray and he's taken up all of my sorcerer emblems. So I'm going to have to wait ages before I get some. So with Topaz, we've got a pretty decent set of stats here. She is one of the newer heroes. She's not one of like the most new set of ninja heroes, but she is pretty new. She's got 821 on the attack, which is a decent attack stat. Yes, she's got a lower defense, so unfortunately she is a bit squishy. But she has a pretty decent, more balanced attack and health stat. Now her special skill is, and she's probably, I would say, the best minion control hero in the whole game. I'm quite confident in saying that because you can choose what charge you want to fire her off at. And she deals a truckload of damage as well. So at charge 1, she destroys all minions from a single target and deals 310 damage. This charge can be used if you've got just a single minion summoner, or if you've got your guys, nearly charged and you just want that extra 10% or 15% to be able to charge the whole team and fire. And because all allies get a small amount of mana for each destroyed minion, if you've got 2 or 3 minions on the target, you're going to be able to charge those guys up and fire them off. Charge 2, she's running at average speed. So this is where at charge 2, I've heard her referred to as like the slow Grimble, because she doesn't destroy all minions from all enemies. She just destroys the minions from the target and nearby. But yeah, she does only destroy the target and nearby minions, but she deals 350 damage to the target and nearby with the 821 attack stat. So yeah, she's not the slow Grimble. She's just not. She is an amazing hero, and I don't think you'd be doing badly if you chose her. And obviously at charge 3, there's just going to be damage to all, which is a huge amount, nearly 400% damage. And destroying all minions and giving mana to everybody. She's a lot better than a slow Grimble at charge 3. So yeah, she is a good choice. I would say that if you are in the higher tiers and you are warring up against some stiff competition, I've seen Topaz used to great effect, but you will need to know what you're doing to be able to play with Topaz. She's not the kind of hero that you can just throw on any team and make it work. You've got to be able to construct a team around her. Now, the next guy in the portal is this beauty. So we had Costume Catalan on the leaked list, who was changed at the last minute for Guan Yu. And thank God for that. Honestly, a Costume Catalan for 20 souls was just a bit of a laugh, unfortunately. Or fortunately, as we've now seen that there is some sanity still left in this game, because Guan Yu is a much better hero. He's not the elite nature hero from the War of Three Kingdoms heroes. That would be Liu Bei. But then Liu Bei is newer than Guan Yu. So I don't think that they could have gotten away with that. Otherwise, everybody would have just chosen Liu Bei and everybody would have just been screwed. But anyways, Guan Yu is an amazing choice. His stats are bonkers. They are just about the best, I think. Yeah, his Galliard, yeah, they're 826 and he's 825 power, so really close to being the best stats of the bunch. 815 attacks, decent. 764 on the defense is good as well. 1435 on the health is good. And his special skill is, it's a really interesting one because he is, I think, the only hero in the game that just bypasses minions when he hits. But he deals a truckload of damage, so 390% damage to the target and nearby enemies. And interestingly, he benefits from the special boost ether power. So if you do pop some emblems on him at the start of the battle, his special skill deals 30% additional damage for 6 turns. So it's like 420 damage if you did add those. And look at that attack stat, nearly 1100. So he's definitely going to hit hard. But the interesting part is that bypass to the target's minions. So if the target does have minions, and I'm thinking about this, like putting him on a team with somebody like Grimble, you can sort of straight up deal some serious damage to 3 targets. And then you can use Grimble to remove the minions and boost the mana of all of your allies back up again. And you could potentially have him fire a second time on top of that and just do, I mean, that would be a team killer if you could get that combination right. So I think there's some interesting synergies that you could work out with Guan Yu. And I'm certainly excited to see those. And the target and nearby enemies also get minus 25 defense and a further 3% decrease for each minion owned by enemies for 3 turns. So you can think of this guy like a 5-star version of Marcel. I know Marcel gives a higher amount of defense down up front, but he hits obviously for a lower percentage because he is a 4-star hero. And his percentage defense down is dependent on the target's minions. But 25% defense down, even without the minions, it's still a good amount. So and there's so many green hit 3 heroes. We've just had Costume Cademan, who I've just finally finished limit breaking. You've got the elemental defense down. You've got Alma. You've got El Nadaha. You've got Grace. You've got Cornell. There's so many hit 3 green heroes in the 4 and 5 stars that there's no way that you're going to struggle to find a synergy with this guy. And he's a damage dealer and a defense down specialist as well. So if you pair him up with somebody like Grace, fire Grace off, he's going to be dealing that additional damage from the special skill. And if anybody's left alive, they're going to be left with a defense down ailment as well. So yeah, he's a really, really good attacking hero. I wouldn't say he's as good on defense. He can be used on defense, but mainly you're going to be using this guy for offense and as part of a green squad of killers. And then we've got Guardian Kong. So let's move on to Guardian Kong. Guardian Kong, he's an amazing hero. The only downside for Guardian Kong, he's got a terrible defensive stat. He does deal 300% damage to all enemies, which is a whopping amount of damage. And he does give the allies the reflect status effects and 115% damage back to the attacker from ice special skills. And he does that all-important dispel buffs from all enemies. The great thing about this guy is that he does dispel, but the terrible thing is that he dispels after he's hit. So unfortunately, if anybody you're attacking has counterattack, you've just killed yourself. And then they're going to be dispelled, but you've lost your Guardian Kong. And his defense stat is absolutely terrible. So he's an amazing hero with a terrible synergy of his own. And I was really considering taking Guardian Kong just because of the red dispel. But people have pointed out to me as well that you've got second costume Gormek, who dispels up front before he hits. So that is an option. And luckily and thankfully for me, I was able to get Ray from the new Magic Heroes, and he dispels at super fast speed, and he's red, and he gives elemental defense down as well. So I don't need Guardian Kong, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but he could be a great hero, and if you don't have a dispeller in red, I would grab him. To be fair, that attack, that hit of 300% is great, and you can plan around taking him against some heavy hitting blue heroes, and they're going to do no damage at all except to themselves. So he is a good pick from this row as well. And then last but not least, maybe least, don't know at this point. It's just been so many heroes. We've got this guy, Gaylord, whatever the fuck his name is. So he is he's just a straight up sniper, man. 842 attack is a massive attack stat. 1458 on the health is great, and the 725 on the defense is pretty good as well. If you've ever been hit by this guy, you know it stings. And he's running at fast speed. 540% damage to the target, is massive. And all allies get immunity to incoming negative effects and damage from fiends. And all allies are immune to new fiends for 4 turns. So this guy is just a controller of fiends. And I think that we are going to be seeing some fiends entering the meta, and fiends definitely becoming more prominent as part of the meta. So this guy is an incredible choice as well. I think, again, he's going to be a better choice for some more sort of late game players with highly developed rosters. And I've seen a few people in my alliance go for him as well, just because of that fiend defense, and because potentially they've got all the other heroes already. For me, I don't have any of these guys except for Master Lepus. I've got Sartana costume, which I don't want, but I don't have Agrafina, Topaz, Guan Yu, Guardian Kong, or Gaylord. Um, so who am I going to choose? For me, the decision's quite easy, and it's kind of based around a few different things. But mainly, what it comes down to is who's going to benefit my roster the most. So, the I was tempted to choose Topaz, but I do have Grimble, and I don't have a lot of yellow synergies that I could see working with her on an attack team. Him, again, I've given you my reason why I'm not going to choose him. Agrafina, I mean, at charge 2, she's great, but do I want to be waiting around that long for charge 2? Not really. It's kind of difficult at this point. I'm not 100% sure. And this is always the point that I get to with this thing, because I know I want one of these heroes. I just don't know which one. So the thing is with him, his damage is great. His defense down is just a given. And, potentially if you do have a minion team, you could have some interesting synergies going on. Let's look at the family bonus. So for minion summoners, I mean, I've got slow heroes from the this family as well, Lu Bu and the yellow guy, and in fact, I've got Cow as well. Man, I've got to go with him. I'm just imagining the team that I'm gonna build with him, and with her, and the one I'm gonna build with him is absolutely incredible. So, that's it. That's mine made up. Wow, that was right to the end. I didn't expect that. So, this is my choice, guys. We're gonna go ahead and get the Guan Yu, the Valiant General, in exchange for these 20 horrible souls, except for Bera and the circus bear guy, just because I've got duplicates of those. So here we go. Oh, and Jasper. Let's go. So we got the right guy. Yeah, there he is. All right, guys. So I hope that this video has been helpful. I hope that you guys have been able to take something from it. I know it's probably lasted for about 1,000,000 hours, but I think that sometimes it's worth making, a good decision and taking your time over making a decision and considering all the options, because this is only going to come around once every 3 months. So I wish you guys all the best of luck in your summons. Please drop us a like, subscribe if you find the videos helpful, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time. Bye for now, guys.